At first glance, you might know Bill Gates as the tech visionary behind Microsoft. But hidden behind the screens, he's quietly become America's largest private farmland owner, controlling over 242,000 acres across 18 states, a landmass bigger than New York City and worth nearly $700 million. It's a farming empire built in near total secrecy, only exposed in 2021. Why would a billionaire software mogul stake his future on farmland? And what does he know about our food system that we don't? The answers begin with a quiet land grab that rewrote the rules of American agriculture. The first land purchases began quietly in the 1990s, tucked away in county records and legal filings that drew little attention outside the world of agricultural real estate. Transactions rarely mentioned Bill Gates by name. Instead, the deeds listed companies like Cascade Investment LLC, or a cluster of unfamiliar farm-sounding names: Oak River Farms, Mount Edna Farms, Cottonwood Ag Management. Most of these entities were registered in Delaware, a state known for its strict corporate privacy laws and minimal disclosure requirements. This web of shell companies made it nearly impossible for the public to trace ownership back to Gates. Each layer added another degree of separation, shielding the true buyer from prying eyes and curious reporters. Brokers and attorneys handled the negotiations, often dealing with local sellers who had no idea who was behind the paperwork. In some cases, parcels changed hands multiple times in quick succession, moving from one holding company to another before settling under the Cascade umbrella. By the time a deal closed, the trail was cold. For nearly 2 decades, these acquisitions continued in near total secrecy. The approach wasn't unique to Gates. Many wealthy investors used similar tactics to keep their land deals private, but the scale and consistency of his strategy set it apart. By the early 2000s, the foundation for a sprawling farmland empire had been laid, hidden in plain sight across dozens of counties and states. Only a handful of insiders knew the true scope of what was being assembled. The pace of acquisitions quietly accelerated in the late 2010s, but it was the 2018 purchase in Washington's Horse Heaven Hills that caught the attention of industry insiders. That year, a Delaware-registered company known as 100C LLC finalized a deal for 14,500 acres of prime irrigated farmland in Benton County, Washington. The price tag, $171 million, stood out even in a region known for high-value potato and wheat production. The seller, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, had previously assembled the tract from dozens of smaller farms. Documents filed with the county listed 100C LLC as the buyer, with a Cascade investment representative signing the tax affidavit. Few in the area realized the land's new owner had ties to Bill Gates. It wasn't until 2021 that the full scale of these acquisitions became public. Investigative reporters from the Land Report and other outlets began sifting through thousands of property records, connecting shell companies and cross-referencing LLC managers. Their findings revealed that Gates, through Cascade Investment and its subsidiaries, had quietly become the largest private farmland owner in the United States. The news broke across national headlines, sparking a flurry of questions about the purpose and impact of this sprawling farm empire. With holdings now confirmed in at least 18 states and totaling more than 242,000 acres, the story shifted from speculation to hard numbers. Journalists mapped the empire's reach, tracing its presence from the rice fields of Louisiana to the potato tracts of eastern Washington, confirming that Gates's agricultural footprint spanned nearly every major farming region in the country. Across Gates's farmland empire, the crops tell a story of modern American agriculture at its most industrial. Soybeans cover tens of thousands of acres in Arkansas and Illinois, destined for animal feed, cooking oil, and the growing market for plant-based proteins. In Louisiana, rice paddies stretch for miles, making Gates one of the country's largest private rice producers. Nebraska fields yield corn and wheat, while Arizona and Washington specialize in potatoes, many of which enter the supply chain for frozen fries and fast food outlets. Smaller parcels in states like North Carolina, Michigan, and California support cotton, carrots, and other row crops, matching the regional strengths of each area. Yet Gates's companies don't plant or harvest these crops themselves. Instead, the land is leased to hundreds of tenant farmers, some families, some large operators, who sign multi-year agreements with Cascade Investment or its subsidiaries. These leases typically require tenants to follow certain crop plans and, in some cases, to report on sustainability practices. Most tenants pay cash rent at or slightly above local market rates, keeping operational control but answering to a corporate landlord. On potato tracts in Washington and Arizona, tenants often contract directly with major processors, feeding into the national supply chain that serves fast food giants. In this model, Gates's role is landlord and investor, not farmer, profiting from the productivity and expertise of those who work the land. Farmland has a reputation among professional investors for being one of the safest places to put money. According to agricultural economists, the average annual return on U.S. farmland sits between 3 and 5% year after year, even when the stock market swings wildly. Unlike tech stocks or commercial real estate, farmland rarely loses value in a downturn. Food demand holds steady, and when inflation rises, so do the prices of crops and the land itself. For a portfolio the size of Gates, those small percentage points add up fast. His farmland empire, spanning 242,000 acres, generates an estimated $50 to $75 million in annual revenue from crop production and land leases alone. That income arrives regardless of weather, global politics, or market shocks, making it a reliable anchor for any billionaire's financial strategy. Still, Gates's total holdings represent only about 0.03% of all U.S. farmland. In the view of many economists, this is a classic move: diversify beyond technology, hedge against inflation, and lock in steady returns. The numbers, not the crops, are what drive these decisions. In rural parishes of northern Louisiana, conversations about land often circle back to a single word: outsiders. For generations, family farms shaped the rhythms of these communities, with land passed down like an heirloom. That sense of continuity began to fray as new buyers, most of them faceless corporations or distant LLCs, entered the market. Few locals realized that some of the largest parcels now belong to entities linked to Bill Gates. The names on the deeds were unfamiliar, and the managers who signed the leases rarely visited in person. For many, the change was invisible at first, but as word spread, suspicion took root. Longtime farmers started noticing that land prices at auction were climbing out of reach, fueled by buyers who never showed their faces. Younger families hoping to buy their first acreage found themselves outbid by sums they couldn't match. In coffee shops and at parish meetings, rumors flourished. Some whispered about billionaires controlling the food supply. Others feared that local traditions were being swept aside by investors with no stake in the community. Even without clear proof, the unease was real. The sense of ownership, once a source of pride, now felt fragile. For some, the land was still home. For others, it had become just another line on a distant balance sheet. Bill Gates's agricultural footprint stands at odds with his public image as a philanthropist championing food security and climate innovation. Through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, more than $1 billion have funded agricultural research and development worldwide, supporting drought-resistant seeds, precision farming technology, and alternative protein startups like Impossible Foods and Memphis Meats. Grants have reached smallholder farmers in Africa and Asia, while research dollars flow to projects aimed at reducing methane emissions from cattle and improving crop yields under climate stress. Yet, while these initiatives point toward a future of sustainable food systems, Gates remains the single largest private owner of conventional farmland in the United States, with 242,000 acres of productive cropland under his control. A spokesperson for the Gates Foundation has stated that these holdings are personal investments, separate from the foundation's charitable work. Critics, however, see a contradiction, funding disruptive food technologies on one hand, while profiting from traditional commodity agriculture on the other. Compared to institutional giants like the Mormon Church, which owns over 1 million acres, or Ted Turner's 2 million acres of ranch land, Gates's empire is smaller but unique in its focus on high-value, productive farmland. This dual role, innovator and landlord, places him at the center of a debate about the future of American agriculture and who will shape it. Bill Gates now owns over 242,000 acres of farmland across 18 states, making him the largest private farmland owner in the United States. Through Cascade Investment, LLC, these purchases began quietly in the 1990s, only coming to light in 2021 after public records and investigative reporting revealed the scope. The land spans from Louisiana's 69,000 acres of rice fields to major potato operations in Washington, supplying crops like soybeans, corn, wheat, and potatoes, much of it leased to working farmers. Gates' stated goal is to support sustainable agriculture, with over $1 billion invested in climate-focused crop research and alternative protein companies. But questions remain. The full list of land parcels is not public, and the long-term impact on rural communities and food security is unclear. As billionaire and institutional ownership of farmland accelerates, the debate over who should control America's food system is far from settled. Gates's empire is only 0.03% of all U.S. farmland, but it marks a turning point in the business of American agriculture. The evidence shows the consolidation is real, and the implications are still unfolding.